Hello, everyone, and welcome to the You Are Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Reed Baker, the founder and CEO of Sophist, the company that provides text-to-pledge. Reed, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. Tell us quickly, give us a quick overview of what text-to-pledge is.
Sure. So text-to-pledge is a Sophist trademark and the top mobile fundraising program in the nonprofit special event space, powering towards about $40 million raised via text messaging at major galas across the country. Definitionally, the program allows for attendees at galas, predominantly sit-down dinners, to text any amount to the client organization. We receive that message on our console. We publish it to the screen in real time at the event. So essentially, our job is to create a very communal, very viral giving environment, and an ongoing conversation about giving, as you know, to function in the background of major special events for nonprofits.
So let's go through kind of a scenario. I want to work through how this works, kind of start to finish. So let's just, would a gala be kind of a typical event? That's what I've had in mind. Is that a typical event?
Definitely. We are actually very specific about the minimum parameters for events. When we're taking on new clients, we're really looking very specifically at who we can be impactful for, and we have enough data to know that like the back of our hand. So we want predominantly seated dinners or seated luncheons, once in a while cocktail reception formats. Most of these events are at least 250 attendees, a base ticket price of at least $250, although most of them are table sponsorship driven or sponsorship driven, so that the vast amount of the attendees are actually attending as an unpaid guest of a sponsor, and they end up being the prime target for text-to-pledge. An event environment also has to have very substantial AV, projection, a lot of screen real estate, because obviously that's what we're going to utilize to monetize for the nonprofit, and we'll turn screens into cash registers essentially. And then you know, a little bit of cell phone reception doesn't hurt either. I mean, we can find that most places, or we can build it out in most places that have a weaker signal. But you know, the reality is that we want the size to be right, we want the ticket price to be right, so that we're targeting you know, more major donors and significant donors than young leadership or donors with less disposable income. And obviously, we want the format to be so that we can integrate in a way to, you know, maintain the continuity of an event and maintain the culture of the event while also monetizing a segment that was most likely dormant from a fundraising standpoint prior to our arrival on the scene.
That's wonderful. Now, let's go through this. Let's work through it. So how far in advance of an event should a nonprofit reach out to you to engage you in the preparations?
Should
2 or 3 hours or what?
Well, if the question is should, they should reach out as early as possible, because we don't charge based on the time and the effort that we put into each campaign. It means that you get a lot more for a lot less if you hire us a couple of years out from your event. And that sounds outlandish, except that I'm already booking up for 2016. And our dates are inventory, so because we send very specialized staff, we're on site at every single event, nothing's operated remotely, you know, our ability to canvass the entire U.S. is really limited to the number of professional operators that I have in the field at a given time. Also, considering the fact that the gala seasons are really twofold during the year. The spring gala season, which is predominantly April through June, and the fall gala season, which is October through December, we're compressing a couple of hundred campaigns into very few dates. So the right answer is book early, and we'll be working long and hard on your campaign, and your date is secured. Can we turn around a campaign very quickly? Yes, we can. We do have organizations that call us last minute during the gala seasons. They could be a couple of days out. They could be 1 day out. We can turn around an impactful campaign as long as the event is in the right structure. And we are pretty dogmatic about structure, especially when it's a last-minute request. And it's not for our benefit. it's for the benefit of the nonprofit organization.
Okay, so what are the structural areas? Are those the things we talked about before, the price and the number of people, or are there other things?
Yeah, they start there, but we get very quickly into the nitty-gritty of each organization's run of show. So the traditional gala format is pretty straightforward, and everybody that's ever attended will understand this after they hear it. It's cocktails followed by a first act. The first act is normally about storytelling, followed by a dinner break where the main course is passed, and normally there's a break in the podium in the speaker program, and then a second act of some sorts or a performance, etc. We really want to be able to stack the deck in the first act of the show so that there's a crescendo leading up to the most compelling programmatic piece that an organization has to offer, because we're going to piggyback onto that, and then normally we're going to monetize the dinner break through text to pledge. So if things are in the right format, then we know very clearly that a client testimonial can lead to the text to pledge appeal. That text to pledge appeal can be done in 60 seconds, and then we can take over the screens during the dinner while people are eating, drinking, networking, and back on their cell phones anyway, to basically leverage that latter activity for a fundraising purpose. And it's a long tail program, so normally we'll see giving for the entire duration of the dinner break.
And what is the average donation you see on your platform when you've done all the preparations the way you like?
I like to present averages and medians. I think it's a little bit more honest and holistic. The average net gift historically, and this is a 7-year average net gift through text to pledge, hovers at around $700. So it is a very significant average gift. The median gift is right around $500. I think it's probably the #1 misconception in the nonprofit space that mobile is most often used for micro donations. We butt up against that pretty often, especially in the aftermath of the Haiti relief efforts by the American Red Cross. Most people, donors, lay leaders, board members, nonprofit staffers, believe that a text message is limited to $10. But at every single one of the events that we do, we might get a $10 gift, we might get a $1 million gift. People can give as high or as low as they'd like. They can give as publicly or as privately as they'd like. So it's really donor preference driven, and it's a combination of the audience's giving capacity and just the level of engagement, which is ultimately going to generate revenue. But it's fairly significant, most often, because we're usually at about a 15% participation rate in a $700 average gift. So it adds up quick.
So that was the other variable I was going to ask you about. What % of the people at a gala usually give?
Yeah, we like to be around 15%. I think the 7-year average is like 15.1, so it's almost 15% on the dot. Now, if it's much higher than that, there's usually a reason why. At this point, if it's much lower than that, there's definitely a reason why. The reality is we're contending with ubiquity, so we're appealing to an audience that are all armed with their mobile devices. All those mobile devices have the ability to text message. And then again, it's a very inclusive program, so because people can make it their own, there's really no excuse to opt out. So the participation rates are very high, and they tend to be much higher than the other on-site giving methodologies, which is where we've really carved out a space for ourselves in a market that has been one way for a very long time.
So these are really significant dollars that organizations are raising through your platform. Let's talk a little bit, complete the picture about the costs. What does it cost an organization to run your program?
Well, it's hard to put an exclamation on cost because there are several different options for organizations to consider. It's all about options at the end of the day. We are a for-profit business, so of course we have to continue to make money in order to raise money. That said, it is fairly common for organizations to raise 10 times or more their costs for text-to-pledge services, and there are a ton of services that go into a very holistic campaign that live way outside just the ballroom itself. But the most important pricing feature, and this is really the only takeaway, is that the net cost is zero. There cannot be an instance where an organization loses money on a text-to-pledge campaign. if we're willing to take on the business, we're willing to take on the campaign, we're also willing to sign on the dotted line, guaranteeing at least a break even. So if an organization, spent $5,000 on our work and they only raised $3,000 after we concurred on the run of show, we would owe them $2,000 to bring them back to a break-even point. So they can't lose, and it's been a hedge that's essentially become a feel-good clause because we're pretty good at picking events. So we don't normally take on campaigns that are not in a position to make a tremendous profit through text to pledge. But that said, it feels good for especially lay leadership, board members, committee members, co-chairs, staff members to know that they're not putting the organization's finances in harm's way, and ultimately there's no risk.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, why did you get into this? I want to get to understand why you care about the success of fundraising for nonprofits.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's timely in a lot of ways. Well, the way I look at it is that it's in my DNA. I had a father, rest in peace, who was a capitalist through and through, a great guy, a great man, a big man in the community, did a lot of charitable work very quietly, but a capitalist, a follow the money type of guy. And he was paired with my mother. My mother is a philanthropist through and through. She's a do-gooder. She's always doing for everybody else, taking care of everybody else, volunteering for this, volunteering for that. So I guess I'm a hybrid of the both of them. And so in some respects, I had no choice but to be who I ultimately have become here. That's really the short answer. The longer answer is that when we started in business in 2003, our focus was really more on entertainment, more specifically on music and film. We went from there very quickly into pivoting towards events because, to be quite honest with you, the music business wasn't the best space to be in 2003. It was essentially under attack from a revenue standpoint. So we started focusing on events, concerts, celebrity events, social events, and then finally corporate and nonprofit. And during that time, we were really building our catalog for essentially front-facing features that were appealing to crowds. And one of those features ended up being interactive on-screen text messaging. When we got to the nonprofit space, we loved it because we loved the idea of going to sleep at night knowing that we did work for a charitable organization and for their beneficiaries, but we didn't like being considered a cost. So if we were being paid $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 on a production side and then couldn't tangibly trace that to an ROI, it was a little bit difficult for us to swallow, and it was difficult for us to really get behind full speed and market. When we rolled out text to pledge, the first time, in fact, in 2007, we were paid less for producing an entire event than text to pledge raised. The second time we ran text to pledge, it raised over $300,000 in a single segment, and at that point the light bulb kind of went off and we realized that we had something that might actually be a standalone, and it's essentially been like a hit record since. So same anatomy as a hit record. We started in the music business, we ended up with a song called Text to Pledge. We've been on tour with it since 2007. But the reality is it just feels good, it's very measurable. We can understand the quality of our work and see very clearly what it translates to in the community, not only because of just the general dollars that we raise, but even content-wise through text to pledge, we are communicating via our impact pack visuals what specific giving levels do for nonprofits. And if text to pledge generates a $250 gift or a $1,000 gift or a $2,500 gift, we usually know very clearly what the organization is able to do with that money. So we sleep very well at night doing the work that we do. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Now, you've been very successful. I want you to channel that success and help our audience, help me understand your counsel for how one goes about having more impact.
More impact. I would say that when you find something that really works, template it. Get into the nitty-gritty. Don't be scared of boredom. Have patience. figure out a formula that you can stick to, that you can teach to others, and that you can really make a difference with over a long term. We've had a really nice, successful run with Text to Pledge because once we figured out foundational elements and how they made a difference, we really stuck to our guns, and we stuck to our guns, up against some really interesting obstacles, including, of course, organizations that didn't want to hire us for the work that we were attempting to do for them, because we essentially are hired not to be told what to do, and it's a strange position for a vendor to be in. But the reality is we have, over the years, continued to stack best practices. We stick to our guns. We create templates, and we try to, of course, evolve those templates over time. But I think it's really the steadfastness and the willingness to stick to our guns that has made us an innovative yet effective fundraising shop. And I think there's a little too much in the marketplace of these the types of individuals and organizations that want to reinvent the wheel time and time again. All it ends up doing is costing everybody a ton of money. The organization, the individual, the company that's providing the service. It's very difficult to operate outside of a working template. And I don't necessarily know that, even though it sounds clear once you've heard it, sounds like an eraser on a pencil sort of idea, that it's thought of at the very onset of most organizations rolling out their mission, and most individual philanthropists too. It really functions on an individual level as well as a corporate level or communal level.
Fantastic. Now, before we go, tell people how they track you down if they're interested in learning more about Text to Pledge.
Sure. So if they want to email us directly, they can email us at events@texttopledge.com, texttopledge.com. We're very quick on email. We're not so quick on phone, but we're very quick on email. So let's stick to email. Of course, we're on Twitter at texttopledge, and the reality is that the website is always an easy way to get at us.
Fantastic. Reed, it's been a joy to talk to you. We congratulate you on your success and wish you continued success in the future.
Pleasure is all mine. Keep doing what you're doing. Doing a great job. Fantastic work. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's do some good.